soft and slow. He took the midnight train going anywhere. A singer in a smoky room, a snow white and cheap perfume. For a smile they can share the night. It goes on and on and on and on. Strangers.
Woo! Welcome back. MicroStrategy True North episode 12. Let's get the crew out here. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody. What is this? Episode 13. Episode 13. Amazing. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Looks like everybody's getting logged in here. Let me hide my screen. Got about 1,000 people following along. And yeah, we are here to have some fun. We've got a few things to talk about, a few things to get through, a little bit of agenda. We're going to talk about some of the catalysts that we got going on, some statistics, an update of statistics, what's happening in the market. We'll talk about the special meeting vote on the 21st. That'll be very brief. We'll have an extended session talking about strategic Bitcoin reserve, inauguration, nation state game theory, energy expansion, SAB 121, free Ross. We'll kind of get through that. We'll play around with that a little bit. And then we'll get into some end of the year estimates, looking at 2025 MSTR. We're going to make some estimates on total Bitcoin holdings for the 2025 year so we can see how close we get to the end of the year. We'll make a little gentleman's bet, and we'll get everybody's updated estimates on how much Bitcoin MicroStrategy will hold by 12/31/2025. So that'll be fun. We'll get into what that may mean in terms of kind of put some potential price action. Again, we'll hop into some moon math. We'll get into my spreadsheet. It may not be as bullish as Gladiator's spreadsheet, but we'll give it a run. We'll see how bullish we can get. And
we can break his models.
We'll try to break his models, Tim's not on here today, but Tim did just message me. It's a Hunter Horsley tweet, who I think is the CEO of Bitwise, and said that some nation states are considering moving some exposure from foreign currency government bonds into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is entering a new chapter. So yeah, some exciting things going on in the entire market. I think the next couple of weeks will be incredibly exciting, and it's a great time to hold Bitcoin, a great time to be interested in following along with MicroStrategy. For those that are new here and have not listened to a MicroStrategy True North episode, the purpose of this is, or the design of this group and this conversation is meant to be a group of guys getting together to talk about what's going on with MicroStrategy. None of this is financial advice. While this may be very interesting information, the folks that come on this show have been in the MicroStrategy trade for a long time, and we do anticipate having guests at some point in the near future here as well. And the point of it is effectively we're going to have these conversations regardless of whether or not these people that are watching the show are here. So the purpose was to broadcast what would be an internal investment group call of folks that have been in the MicroStrategy trade for a long time and are that care a lot about the outcome of what's going on with MicroStrategy. So it's people that are very invested in the day-to-day information within the market. So what's happening in financial markets, how convertible bonds work, how preferred stock works, how FASB fair value accounting is changing, the accounting of earnings, how we see cash flows from ETFs, et cetera, the whole thing. So that is the design of MSTR True North. So thank you everybody for joining, and let's jump into it. So I will pop open my screen here and we will jump to mstrmoon.com, where we have the MSTR Catalyst Tracker. So as Soleil had mentioned last week, here, let me just make it so everybody's here. As Soleil mentioned last week, so all of these are very exciting times. So every single catalyst on this list is exciting. It's not to say that we think that any one of these catalysts will result in, rocket green candles on that catalyst day. Rather, this is publicly available information of things that are bullish for MicroStrategy and Bitcoin thinking into the future. So obviously, January 17th, 2025, historic option expiration. So that is this Friday. We have seen some bullish action in MicroStrategy over the last week or last 3 days, really from Monday to today, where I think the price of MicroStrategy has gone from about $300 to, I think, closed today around $360. And along with myself, there are many people that are exercising option contracts that were purchased throughout 2022, 2023, and 2024 that may be very heavily in the money. And the result of that may result in a significant amount of shares that market makers that were previously using those shares as hedges may have to deliver those shares to the folks that are exercising. That may result in some sort of potential gamma squeeze, where market makers need to go out and purchase more shares in order to hedge in the money options positions throughout the rest of the option chain. That's a complicated topic. And I think this is historic again, because the January 17th, 2025 call option leaps were available in late 2022. And there are many people that have purchased those leaps throughout 2022, 2023, and 2024. So exciting day on the horizon. I myself have been exercising contracts every single day since last Monday. A lot of people have asked, why exactly am I exercising my contracts early? The purpose of that really is a signal, recognizing that not all brokerage houses will exercise your contracts for you. Some of them, you do have to let them know that you intend to exercise the contracts. Additionally, you need to be prepared on how these things work, right? I mean, if you're exercising a call option contract, you need to have the cash in your account to exercise the contract. The question comes up, where do you get your cash to exercise all of these things? So ultimately, I'm exercising early to indicate that there is some work involved. Not everybody knows that. People that were buying MicroStrategy call options, this may be the first call option that they've ever purchased. So with that said, we got a few other things on the horizon, aside from this January 17th option expiration. Presidential inauguration, that is next Monday. I believe the market is closed. Do you guys know? Market's closed on Monday. Is that right? For the inauguration? Are banks closed? Is that Martin Luther King Day?
I was going to say, is it MLK Day also?
I think it's MLK Day. So I think markets are closed on Monday. So just as an FYI for a presidential inauguration, there is some rumor and buzz around there being roughly 1,200 executive orders that the president plans to sign, I think within the first day or the first couple of days. I think this could be a historic first 100 days for a president in terms of signing executive orders. And if you zoom out and just think about 1,200 executive orders, that if strategic Bitcoin reserve is one of the 1,200, this could be as simple as, writing a signature, taking a picture, onto the next one. Writing a signature, taking a picture, onto the next one. And that's it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think there's going to be a lot of buzz and a lot of noise in the first 2 weeks. So incredibly exciting times. FTX estimated 16.5 billion repayments sent to customers. That is a very large figure. And I suspect those that are getting $16.5 billion back, or those that are getting money back in fiat dollars, will be very hungry to redeploy those fiat dollars into the assets that they held originally when FTX did collapse. So I suspect that to be very bullish Bitcoin, and folks that did have that money invested in FTX have had plenty of time, years, to rethink shit coining and whether or not they want to hold alternative assets, or which which asset they'd prefer to hold. So I suspect that to be bullish for Bitcoin. Again, the best of the best collateral, the largest network, et cetera, et cetera. Q4 earnings report, that's expected to be in February. I think February 4th to February 9th, somewhere between there. This will be the 10K earnings report. We don't believe this will be the adoption of FASB fair value accounting, but we will have an understanding of what the hurdle is for how much the price of Bitcoin needs to move in Q1 2025 in order for the adoption of FASB fair value accounting in Q1 2025, in order for the earnings per share to wipe out all historical negative earnings per share and qualify for the S&P 500. So a big day in February, and that just leads us into more and more catalysts for February, March, and April. Right, we've got quarterly rebalances from MSCI, Russell Index Rank Day, MSTR World in May, etc. You guys have anything else to add on these catalysts?
Well, it just occurred to me that like MSTR earnings is the only earnings call I ever get excited about. Like, I just don't care about anyone's earnings report other than just to check to see if it went up the next day or down or whatever. But MSTR, I'm just like, what are they gonna say? I want to read the tea leaves.
Oh yeah, I mean the Q3 earnings call was like Michael Jordan in his prime, right? It was one of the coolest earnings calls I've ever listened to. I've only listened to it, I don't know, a handful, like 8 or 10. And 6 of them have been for companies that I've worked for,
Right.
So yeah, it's a very, very entertaining call to listen to. And it's crazy to me, honestly. And so like we were talking just before this, that was the last MicroStrategy earnings call that happened. I was on Halloween. That was October 30th. And we haven't had an earnings call since then. And MicroStrategy in Q4 has acquired, in Q4 alone, I think has acquired around 190,000 Bitcoin. So since that earnings call, they've acquired 190,000 Bitcoin. Just crazy.
Hold on, before we get started, in Ben's honor, let me unscrew this light bulb.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Much better.
Beautiful. Yeah. So
and real quick about the catalyst. I mean, just keep in mind that if we don't get any of, if any of these don't happen, or if they don't happen on this date, they can turn into an anti-catalyst, which doesn't mean anything for the overall MSTR, investment thesis, but it could be a localized repricing event. So be very careful about pinning your hopes on a particular expiration date on an option around any of this, because it doesn't necessarily mean there's a direct correlation to some kind of price appreciation happening. So just a word of caution there.
Absolutely. That's fair. A couple other things just to note. So we do have MSTR World coming up on May 5th. I know Tim Kotzman has announced that we've got, he has a code for 20% off attending MicroStrategy World passes. We are planning to do an MSTR True North party at some point on one of the days. I think either Monday or Wednesday. So we're still working through that. So if you do attend, we do plan to have a True North party at some point during that week. Grain, do you have any thoughts on that you want to share?
Hold on a second. Wait.
He's working on it. He's got to take off his helmet. Well, we will have that.
Yes,
go ahead, Greg.
Yes. So I'm gonna throw. Mine's gonna be more casual. It'll most likely be in one of the hotel bars or something relatively easy to do. I'll provide drinks and hors d'oeuvres. People can come and mingle, so it'll be there. So the people that are there, it'll be very easy to get to. And then obviously if the price rips up, then I have to figure out, because I'm projecting that about 75 people would show up based upon my invite. But obviously if the price doubles or triples, quadruples by then, I think that the number will probably be double or triple or quadruple. So I think that'll be a problem I'll have to handle. So I think that I'll post more information as it comes out. But yes, I'm looking forward to doing that and meeting the people that would like to come down and meet me. I think that'd be great. And all the MSTR True North folks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Grain. Grain will be the official host of the MSTR True North Party, but it will be a ton of fun. We'll all be there, and we'll be having a good time. There's also, just as an FYI, we do have some merch available on the HODL shop. It is hodlshop.com. It's available. You can see it on the screen here. You can come into the menu and find it. We do have some merch available. And we got some new things. We got some coasters. We got a whiskey glass, which is a little different than my whiskey glass, but that's okay. And yeah, any profits that are coming from MSTR True North, we are going to put this back into the community. We will likely be doing that in late February, early March. So whatever profit we have developed between now and February, or since when we launched it, and February/March, we'll either be sponsoring people to come to MSTR World or additional merch, or we'll be doing something with those profits that is putting it back into the community. So some exciting stuff on the horizon there. Let's see, what else do we want to hit on? So that's Catalyst. Oh, statistics. So irresponsibly long community, we are at, what do we have? I think 26,000 members on irresponsibly long MicroStrategy. We have High T MicroStrategy, which is now at 4.1 thousand members. There are multiple groups and communities where you can talk about MicroStrategy that's just separate from the mainstream, Twitter chat. There's also a Discord that has multiple channels. Like if you want to go on and talk about options and learn about options, there's an options channel. If you just want to chat with other people that are crazy and up all night and just want to chat only MicroStrategy, hop into the MSTR Discord, the MSTR Den. It's entertaining. There's people there at all hours of the day, all the time. Doesn't matter, where on planet Earth you are. It's always cooking. So a lot of fun things going on there. All right. And I guess item number 2 is that there is a special meeting vote on the 21st. So I've gotten an email as a shareholder of MicroStrategy. I've gotten an email to vote on this special meeting to increase the share authorization from 330 million up to 10 billion. I have now voted on all of my positions in all of my brokerage accounts. Pay attention. That will come through via email. If you haven't seen it through email from your brokerage account, you may have to reach out to your brokerage to figure out how to vote. Again, a lot of people really freaked out when this share authorization thing came out because they thought that Michael Saylor is going to dilute the shareholders from 330 million to 10 billion. Just going to add 9.7 billion of shares is on the ATM. That's just not true. That's not going to happen.
All in Q2.
All in Q. Oh my God. It's just so silly. That
includes stock splits too, right? So every stock split is going to cut a decimal place off of that. So
bingo. If there's one more 10-to-1 stock split, so we had a 10-to-1 for those that are new to MicroStrategy, which I'm actually surprised. There are many people that have purchased their first MicroStrategy share after the 10-to-1 stock split in August. And Grain, thanks to you for running that poll. But there was a 10-to-1 stock split that occurred in August. And if there's an additional 10-to-1 stock split, let's say that occurs next August, the number of shares goes instantly from 330 million to 3.3 billion. 0 ATM, right? There's no ATM that occurs. All of a sudden, it just takes one more stock split from there. They couldn't even do another 10-to-1 stock split from there. They couldn't go from 3 billion to 30 billion. It's just, it can't happen. They don't have the capacity or authorization to increase the share numbers. So is the authorization for increased ATM? Sure, probably a little bit, but it's likely for increased capacity for stock splits. To put that in scale and scope for most people, when MicroStrategy was incorporated in 1998 or whatever year it was, the share authorization figure was 330 million. That number has been static for 25 years. And the share count has gone from, I think at the beginning of 2024, it was around 17 million. And so now it's gone from 17 million to 270 million because of ATM and stock split. So again, this is not like this is a not even a non-event from like a rational thinking perspective. This is nothing to do with dilution. Like people aren't going to get their shares diluted away. It's not a thing. So please vote if you have shares. Not everybody will vote. Honestly, Saylor holds like 45% of the voting power. So even if 80% of the people voted and Saylor voted once for all of his shares, I think it gets passed. So not that it matters a ton, but please go exercise your right to vote. Okay, let's get into the fun topic. Inauguration on Monday. Anybody have any thoughts on what we see? Anything crazy? I mean, there's a lot of buzz and conversation out there. What do you think, Neetu, Dan, Grain? What are you guys seeing? What are you hearing? What's the buzz? What's the news?
I mean, I think it's quite bullish that the price of Bitcoin started to rally this week. If things had sort of tailed off and traded sideways and down this week, I think the insiders wouldn't have been excited and people wouldn't have been front running what could be sort of an unexpected announcement. And I know a lot of people have reached out to me asking, okay, is this a sell the news event? And I actually thought Trump's victory would be a sell the news event, but I was completely wrong. And I think it's difficult to price in a sell the news event when no one knows the actual news or the event. And so I think people are speculating now on what that could be. But, ultimately, we don't know what executive orders will be signed, if any will be signed, and if any have to do with crypto or Bitcoin or what Trump will do. So I think there's a lot of unknowns still. And so I doubt it's going to be necessarily a sell the news event. If the news is unfavorable, then there could be a correction, but I think things are looking good.
I mean, it's a huge deal, right? And so because of how like monumental a strategic Bitcoin reserve would be, I think that is causing people to think that the probability that it happens is low, right? Kind of getting to your point. It's like, how are people analyzing the probability of this event? Does it seem so outlandishly crazy that non-Bitcoiners are like, there's a 0% probability, right? It's tough to say.
I mean, has he said anything about it? Like, I mean, he literally did say he was going to free Ross on day one, right? Was that said? Promised, I think, at the Libertarian Convention or something like that.
Free Ross day one. You also have Cynthia Lummis coming out today with a tweet that says, just a little reminder, as things are about to get crazy, emotions and excitement can run high. Don't send Bitcoin or crypto to some random wallet address or QR code. As ever, do your own research beforehand. We head into a new administration in the US that will unleash American innovation. I've never been more bullish on America. It's tough to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure SBR is going to happen, but like, I don't know about on day one.
Day one, first 100 days, right? Seems likely, right? Because a president is generally measured by their first 100 days in office and the things that they signed into place. And it could. I feel like Trump's team knew that they won last February, right? Or like after the Biden debate, right? The first Biden debate. When was that? Like September? No, it was earlier than that. It was like August. I feel like they knew that they won at that point. And at that point, it's almost like efforts probably shifted to, okay, like what are we going to do? And planning and setting up all of these potential executive orders, documents, getting prepared for being in office, thinking that there was a high likelihood that they do take over power in January. So somebody put this in the chat here too. Yeah, rumors of 1,200 executive orders to be signed in the first 24 hours, and that seems so crazy. I mean, does Trump just take like a couple of Red Bulls and start signing stuff and taking pictures and signing stuff and taking pictures? And you also can't forget that JD Vance owns, what is it, like 6.15 Bitcoin? I mean, he knows the assignment. So you've got the vice president, chatting in the air, and Saylor was literally at Eric Trump's house, or is at Mar-a-Lago, took a picture with Eric Trump. That was like a week ago. That was like New Year's Day or the day after New Year's Day. So yeah, there's a lot going on there.
And can they secretly sign the SPR order and then just start acquiring Bitcoin and then announce it like after they've gotten a nice fat stack? I don't know how much shady stuff they can do with that.
Yeah, that's another.
It would be smart to do it.
It's another kind of weird question, right? Like, okay, if you signal that you're doing this, that suddenly makes every single nation state that's not doing it reconsider what they're doing. They're like, hold on, am I going to get behind the 8 ball here? Am I going to get beat by America again? Right. And then if you do initiate a strategic Bitcoin reserve, that's probably the only time anybody's going to hear about it, because if you're America, you don't really want to like yell this from the treetops, right? You don't really want to tell everybody how much you got, I would think.
Don't they already, I don't even know the facts. It's pretty embarrassing, but on the existing Bitcoin holdings, someone floated the idea to me. It's like, okay, the US will just, like, in their form of a strategic Bitcoin reserve will just be them retaining the Bitcoin, saying we pledge to retain these Bitcoins in the interest of national security or something. Like, I feel like that's a reasonable expectation in the first 100 days.
Yeah. It's like the existing supply is like, look, we're not going to sell this.
That's a good start.
It's an endorsement. Exactly.
Yeah. And even that,
that'll rip the price.
Even that, right?
Yeah, just not selling it like dumbass Germany.
Oh my God.
And they don't have to worry about the accumulation. Like, they can just announce that. They don't have to worry about, like, if they were to announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve with X number of Bitcoins, they announce it, they go out and buy. It's a disaster, crazy, market FOMO, whatever. In this case, I think it'd be a pretty seamless process. And then they can, spend plenty of time thinking about their acquisition strategy if it's a favorable, or if it's something they want to continue. So I don't know. I do like that proposal, or that way of thinking.
Oh my God, that Germany selling their Bitcoin on the 4th of July. That was one of the most insane things. That was one of those events. You're just like, oh my God, how is this really happening? Like, is Germany selling 50,000 Bitcoin on the 4th of July, like the least liquid trading day probably of the entire year, right? Like nobody's around on the 4th of July. Like, what?
Oh yeah. I got wrecked that day.
Oh, I mean, Bitcoin went down to like 56,000 or something like that. Yeah, I remember I was throwing buy orders out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting hit on all of these. I have no capital left. Yeah, man, that was totally crazy.
Yeah, I think I did 40% down that day in a day.
Oh yeah,
that's
the negative Lambo days. You hate to see those.
Negative Lambo margin call.
Negative Lambo margin call day. Oh God.
Happy 4th. Yeah.
So I'll chime in what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, hit us.
Yeah. So leaving out the SBR, if they proceed forward, I think that you're going to see, and you said the first 100 days, they want to get things accomplished. You're going to have this euphoria that happens with any new administration, especially this one, given all the information that we already know. So I think you're going to see the market rip up. If there's any breather, it'll happen around April 15th, where people have to sell to pay massive tax bills for money that they made last year. So those are people that took money off the table and need money to pay bills. So that tends to always happen around April 15th. But then right after April 15th, you got whatever MSTR World, and they have to implement FASB. So that will be a known event. And then when that happens, you're basically 6 weeks away from S&P 500 inclusion. So there's your second rip up. So you get 2 rip ups, maybe a dip. If that happens, we can get overextended, and then typically the summers are always dull. They just are. The Wall Street guys go out to the Hamptons.
Everybody's partying.
Their friends, they party. And if it ripped up, then they're like, oh, we're just going to go to the Hamptons and hang out. So I see 2 rips happening. If there is an SBR, then who knows how high it goes. Now, on those pullbacks, that's when the new people will come in. Oh, my God, it doubled, and then it pulled back 30%. And then they're like, if they got in late, they're like, oh, well, I'm down money on MicroStrategy, and all you guys made money because you bought it back in September and October and December of last year. and then we'll repeat the same message again that we keep on hearing. So my takeaway is somebody had mentioned about the 10-year. I think they can cut interest rates and it won't do squat on the 10-year. Mortgage rates will stay high. So in the end, I see two rips that happen on the way up. I'm very bullish about that. If there's an SBR, it goes way higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things there, right? Like the comment on the 10-year and the yield curve is really interesting, right? Because the Fed is aggressively cutting rates. Maybe not aggressively. They're cutting rates. They've been a little hawkish, I guess, in the last couple of meetings. But
Right.
but the Fed is cutting rates, and the tail of the yield curve has stayed high. So that's basically the market is saying, I don't believe you. I think inflation's coming back. And
I think, yeah,
right.
I think that's true. So I want to say something. I do not think, I'm reading some of the comments. I don't think the IRS will be abolished. I don't think that'll happen anytime soon. I think somebody commented
the
also on the
ERS.
VIX. Yeah, I'm reading the comments on the VIX. I don't think, as long as your VIX is under 20, don't give a crap. I don't think you have to really be concerned with that part about it. And my party's not priced in. If the number rips up, I would really like to have the problem figuring out where 500 people, I have to get a room for them, to have a big enough party. So,
yeah, I mean, so beyond the inauguration and strategic Bitcoin reserve, there's other things here, right? Like it's not just strategic Bitcoin reserve. There's SAB 121 and the ability for banks to custody Bitcoin, which might be as monumental, if not more monumental, to businesses. It's certainly more monumental to businesses in America that want to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, because they would then have the ability to work with their existing bankers to that manage their current money to put this Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they don't have to use Coinbase or use a third party that they've never used before, or worry about this company existing 5 years from now, right? Like Apple or Meta or any of these other large companies, they don't want to work with Coinbase. They're likely going to work with their JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley or any of these other banks that they do all of their business with. So I think that's incredibly bullish for Bitcoin, and like global corporate adoption is the, I guess, repeal. How does this work? I mean, that the House and the Senate approved SAB 121, and then it got vetoed by Biden last year. So I guess I don't know what.
Yeah, but I thought SAB. We don't have Jesse on, but I thought SAB 121 was to undo what was going against the banks. So I've read also that they don't even have to get that approved if they just have them, by changing the people that control whatever the regulators were that were doing it, whatever specific group, they could rescind that from happening. So I don't even think that SAB 121 has to be approved. It can go faster that way.
And I mean, if everybody's getting fired day one too, like if Gensler's gone, which is he officially gone? Like he's out of there, right? I mean,
I think he ends this week. So I think this is going to transition really quickly. Look, I'm super bullish. I think Michael Saylor said this when the spot Bitcoin ETFs were approved on January 10th of last year. So we're now over a full year into this. Everything changed, and obviously with the shift in administration and everything you guys already said,
there it is. There's
going to be two rips up, at least two. SBR, it goes really high, and so with that, I mean, where else are you going to put your money?
Right. Opportunity.
Mag 7 stocks. I mean, that's about it. You got Mag 7. You got maybe the top 15, 20 stocks in S&P 500, Bitcoin, and that's it. That's your only choices.
Yeah. And even the Mag 7 trade seems, I mean, that's tricky. NVIDIA in the last month, or not, maybe the last like 5-7 days, NVIDIA in the last 5-7 days has lost, I don't know, 500 billion in market cap, 400 or 500 billion in market cap, like 5 MicroStrategies in the last 5 days. Just kind of crazy to think about the nominal comparison there in terms of size and scale.
They're one invasion away from their price tanking 80%.
Yeah.
All the chips. Well, I guess they have one more factory now, right? Don't they have a U.S. factory now?
Oh, I'm not 100% certain. They've got like 2 factories. Oh my God, that seems.
But well, before there was only one, and it was, potentially, if China invaded Taiwan, then their one and only chip factory was gonna probably not be producing chips
Jesus.
for the whole world.
Wow. Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah, I think they got a backup now.
Wow. And the market cap, right? The market cap of Nvidia is 3.3 trillion. So it's 1.5 times the size of Bitcoin, all of Bitcoin. The scale is crazy. Okay. What else? What else is big with the inauguration? I mean, energy, becoming energy dominant. I mean, I think we're already energy dominant, but becoming even more energy dominant. If energy prices in America fall, like drill baby drill, if that's a thing, I mean, that may incentivize even more Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin development happening within U.S. borders. And I think that's also something that's top of mind, is keeping those jobs, that infrastructure, those people, that mining facilities in U.S. borders. So there's so many things here that could be helpful for Bitcoin adoption in general, both corporately, politically. You're signaling to individual states that, look, the U.S. government is doing it. Each individual state can then run a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I think, multiple are already considering it, like Texas and New Hampshire, and I think, a couple, Pennsylvania, a couple other states. So, I mean, all of this is really exciting.
Yeah, I got some crazy things to add in. So hopefully this will be helpful. First of all, Bitcoin hash rate continues to go up and hit all-time highs. People don't talk about that anymore. Copper prices are high, which means that they're building data centers. So that's a really good thing. Another weird thing is if the U.S. takes Greenland, there's 2 things about that that's different. First of all, it'll be us. Denmark really can't afford to keep it. And so it might be in their best interest just to sell it, which is kind of wild. That will be a signal to the rest of the world that the United States is trying to pick up different landmass areas and natural resources. That is a major political shift that I think will just be positive in general. If you combine, the crazy theory here is you combine taking Greenland with strategic Bitcoin reserve. Most of the other developed nations, including China, would be like, oh, wow, that's a global shift that just took place. I don't have any whatever price target you have, if those 2 things happen, just throw in a 2x on top of whatever your price target was, or maybe a 4x. So when you look at those things, I think that that's pretty wild. And I think also that you have a weird problem happening here. Someone mentioned about the California fires, and you had talked about that, Jeff. You're more of an expert on it. But the reality is that they're going to have to rebuild those homes. So somewhere they're going to have to get the money from to do that. So if they do fire up the money printer, you have the bigger problem of stoking inflation with monetary debasement. So I really there's no solution to that, but I can't see how those homes don't get rebuilt. So I think that makes a building boom. I don't think it's not a good way to force that.
Well, I mean, the crazy part about this whole California wildfire thing is like, okay, there's probably 50 billion of insured loss, 30 to 50 billion. Maybe it's more. I have no idea. Like, this is going to take years to solve, 5-10 years to solve. Now, there's probably $100 billion of economic loss in excess of insured loss, like roads, infrastructure, government buildings, schools, utility infrastructure, all of these other things. And to your point, all of that's going to be inflationary. I don't see any way where the federal government doesn't step in at least more than the $700 that they've offered the victims of the wildfires. So it's a really sticky situation, and California is in a really tough spot, particularly Southern California. I mean, all of California, really, because the insurance market is in a really tricky spot. Insurance prices are going up, guaranteed, probably across the globe, not just in California, localized in California. I would, anybody on this call, if you live in the United States, I would prepare for your insurance costs to continue to go up, because now we've got a big hurricane and a big wildfire in the same year. 2 big hurricanes and a big wildfire in the same year. And yeah, reinsurance costs are going up and insurance costs will go up. So weird times. Okay. Also free Ross day one. That's got to happen, right? That's got to happen. Imagine what that guy is going to be up to if he does get out of jail. I mean, he should take some time off and take some, relax at home. But I mean, he's going to get back on the scene, I think, involved in politics or Bitcoin, or I mean, the people are going to throw money at that guy. I would suspect. I mean, he's going to be a huge marketing tool for a lot of people, I suspect. We'll see. Okay. Shall we get into some end of the year estimates? I mean, we're cooking through this today. End of the year estimates. Okay, here, let's do this. I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see. Somebody said in the comments, renting is starting to look better and better. I couldn't agree more. Mm-hmm. I was speaking with my uncle today. He's got 2 rental properties, and I just sold him. We've been talking about MicroStrategy for years now, and we just looked at MSTY, and I was just like, hey, look at this thing, and he's like, oh my God, why do I own rental properties?
Hey, there was an interesting article that got posted today by the Kobayashi Ladder saying that the risk-free rate on the 10-year is more than the cap rate on rentals. I'm going to see if I can pull it up real fast.
Oh, it is. I mean, it for sure is. What's the
hold on.
What's the 10-year? 4.5, 5?
I'll pull this up. And so you could just buy treasuries and not have to deal with a rental. So it doesn't make any sense to do this. So here it was. It's Nick Gurley posted this today. I could repost it right now. And so the 10-year U.S. Treasuries are now more than the typical the real estate cap rate that's targeted. So I will now repost this to my account. And so there's no reason, for real estate, given this weird environment we're in with high rates. That's where we are. You know what the weird thing is about this is that you got high rates and you got let's say a 7% 30-year fixed rate on a mortgage. People are like, the rates are too high, they can't buy homes. It's like, well, we had 0% rates. The rates are too low. Like, well, what rates do you want? Well, we want the middle rate. So I don't know what the middle rate is, but that's exactly what I just posted. So yeah, why buy us? And this says single family rentals. So maybe if you have a multi-unit apartment complexes, you might be able to make out better. But I think a lot of real estate investors, after what happened in Florida and in California, will be like, and especially COVID, tack that into it. I don't see. Michael Saylor was right. Buying real estate to put it on your balance sheet, and there's a lot of impaired commercial real estate due to Zoom, being able to work remotely. So I would never buy rental producing real estate. That's just me.
Yeah, and so you think of cap rate. So what is cap rate? Cap rate is your cash flows that your relative cash flows that you're earning on the property, and then you're taking the principal appreciation risk too. So and this is average cap rate. I know in my market, like in Seattle, I think average cap rate's like 2, because more of the value is placed on the speculation, the speculation of the principal increasing, right? The value of the home increasing, and that's just a tricky bet. I mean, in 2009, 2010, if anybody had any capital, it was a no-brainer to go buy homes, right? Like to go buy a portfolio of homes. Like all of the home values are. You could buy something that is 50% off, like 60% off, and charge rent and make income and do this leveraged on debt. And it was really a no-brainer. But I think the dynamics of that trade have changed drastically. Not only is it flooded with people that are trying to do flips and manage a portfolio of real estate and Airbnbs and vacancies, and people can't afford rent, and you've got squatters and political environments you got to deal with, and maintenance costs, property tax, like all of these things. The equation gets really tricky really fast, and alternative investments look very, very appealing.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm gonna chime in real fast and we'll move on. So New York Ross made a point that a good cap rate is always 7%. Let's just assume it's 7%. Make it 8%. Okay, I don't care. You pick 8%. S&P 500 index in 2023, I believe, did 22% and 25% last year. So from that perspective, 22 and 23 is 45% return. And if you're making 8% back to back, it's 16. So you triple your value by just buying the S&P 500, which by default is 500 different stocks, and you can get in and out anytime you want to, and you could sell a piece of it. If I buy a single family home, let's say just give an easy number, 500 grand. I can't sell a piece of that off. I could do a home equity, a loan against it, but I can't sell a piece of it. And so if you make a 50% return in 2 years and you put down 200 grand, you're up 100 G, you could peel off 25,000. The reason why people like real estate, folks, and this is the biggest insight right here, is that they love the fact that they get a monthly payment. And if you could forego a monthly payment and give yourself 390 days to take a lump sum payment in the next tax year, would you rather have a 25% return and take out 10%, or to get 8% paid out monthly? The math isn't that hard. And that's why real estate was never investable for me, because I always made triple or 4 or 5 or 10 times the amount in the stock market, and I could peel off a piece. And I did the math in my head. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
My rant's over.
Yeah, I mean, there's significant utility value in owning a home too. And I mean, for me, like, I own this home, but I don't think of it as an investment. I just think of it as a utility. Like, it's shelter. It's a place where it's like my home. If at the end of this being my home, I make money on it, great. But like, that's like not even how I view it really. It's like a utility. It's a utility for me.
Yeah, the house you live in is not an investment; it's a liability.
Yeah,
The second or third that you get, maybe, but not the one that you live in.
but it's funny you say that it's a liability, because I've got an interest rate at 3.25, and that interest rate at 3.25 kind of feels like an asset to me now, which is a weird frame of reference. Because it doesn't make sense for me to move and go buy something somewhere else at a 7% interest rate and lock myself into that. Like, the debt itself is an asset. I would rather,
Exactly.
like, keep this
I feel the
house
same way.
and use it as, like, I could use my house as collateral, right? I could start to think about, okay, well, if I just keep this house because I'm locked in this interest rate for 30 years, I'm locked into this interest rate for 30 years. I could just use this house as collateral and like take out a HELOC loan to go, buy something else out, at some point in the future. It's crazy thinking about a piece of debt as an asset.
When I look at that interest rate now, because I refinanced and got a lower rate, and I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, you want to give me this money at what interest rate? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah. I was yelling at my wife, like, we gotta get a house. This is crazy. Like, after a while, it just became a no-brainer. And then everything was just so nuts at the time when we were looking at homes too. It was like, nobody knew what anything was worth. Everything was an auction. Everybody was just launching bids like 40% over. You're like, what even is this market? It's just totally crazy. Now it's like completely flipped. It's kind of gone.
The telemarketers call me and they're like, "Hey, are you interested in selling your house?" And I'm like, "Where am I going to live?"
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Can't afford to get a mortgage at the interest rates now. Are you insane?
Yeah. It's like, where am I going to get that cash flow? It's like you're paying. Yeah. And the thought of uncertainty of interest rates 5-10 years from now, and the ability to refinance, right? In the past, if somebody bought like a 5 or 6 I don't know, 6% loan, people would be like, oh, I can potentially refinance at some point when, interest rates come down or whatever. And
But maybe they won't.
But now you're like, well, okay, I don't know. Like if inflation comes back, what's the interest rates may never come back down. They may go the opposite way. That's crazy.
I think that, sorry, I had to drop off, but that's the weirdest part we're in right now. The fact that the federal government ran a $2.2 trillion deficit just last year, and it's over 36 trillion, and you have higher interest rates leads to a higher interest rate payment, and that it's 120% GDP. It's just not sustainable. So it does not matter who leads the Federal Reserve. You cut interest rates, spikes inflation, people hate you, right? That's if you cut interest rates. If you make interest rates higher, you kill the real estate market because they can't build new houses because the 30-year fixed ARM is too high for people to buy. So there's no genius that's going to fix that problem. I wish there was a non-sovereign thing that we could buy, and maybe if there was a company that put it on their balance sheet, that might be a good idea. But I'm not sure. I got to go look into that.
Green, I've just got like a question, understanding, I guess, your marketplace being in California. I mean, how do you see Prop 13 changing? Like, is anything crazy like going on with tax rates in California? For those that are unaware, in California, there's this law or this rule, I think it was made in the 70s or 80s, that your property tax when you buy your house, or the property tax that you pay on your house, is pegged to the assessment value when you bought your house. And it can only increase a maximum of 2% a year. And so if you think about the money supply increasing at 6.5% a year and your property tax can only increase 2% a year, that seems like a money arbitrage. And I think we saw that in California. People bought homes left and right because you could basically arb the delta between your property tax and the money supply. So Grain, I mean, are you seeing that impact like your market?
So there's a lot of different dynamics. So it's true what you said. So you buy the house. So the people that bought a house 30, 40 years ago are paying incredibly low property taxes. The other thing that they did for old rich people is that when you're over the age of 55, most counties in California, you could buy another house and you could transfer your tax base with you, which is insane.
What?
Yeah. So you can look that up. I don't remember the proposition, but you have to be 55.
But it's only if you're over 55.
And own the house. It has to be your primary residence.
Oh
and,
my
and
God.
you lived in it for more than 5 years. So again, that benefits older rich people. So you can do that. So the property taxes are relatively low at, let's say, 1.1% in California, just in general. And then the insurance isn't bad as long as you don't have fire insurance, because if you're not in a burn area. So that's a variable. Like Florida, my brother lives in Florida. His insurance bill is double mine because of hurricanes, but I don't have earthquake insurance. So you have these weird dynamics that happen all over the place. So
yeah, every state's its own little micro economy that operates.
Yeah, so in the end, does this benefit people, Prop 13? I don't know. You could have argued that both ways. I do think that the system breaks now, and I'll tell you why. Anybody that has a 2.75% or under 3% loan isn't going to move.
Zero. There's no ever.
You're not moving because if you still have a mortgage, most likely your mortgage payments will double or triple. So there's no reason that you're going to move. So that takes more houses out of inventory, just because it does, because those people aren't moving no matter what. So there's less inventory. But on the flip side, and I said this before and I got lambasted before, but I don't care, my house doubled in value. So therefore the pool of buyers for that got a lot smaller. So now all of a sudden you have no inventory, the prices are really high, and you have high borrowing costs. It's like the real estate market's locked up. So then you're going to go rent.
Yeah.
Renting, I don't think, is a picnic either. But anyway, with that said, what does that mean? I don't like real estate for any form of passive income. I would rather make a lump sum payment, buy Bitcoin or MicroStrategy, and every year peel off 5% or 20% or whatever I need to live, and I'll give up that monthly payment. And I don't have to worry about a toilet overflowing on the third floor and causing $15,000 in damage because the person wasn't home.
Yeah. Or on 5% of your portfolio, you sell 100% out of the money, covered calls, and just follow Soleil's playbook. Again, Soleil is going to be the most popular person in the entire group here 12 months from now when people understand like the power of that,
Yeah.
power of that trade. Because then you can start to make you literally make a monthly income off of just putting your shares at risk as opposed to, putting your dollars in a property at risk, right? Like people don't think that if you own a home, that home is at risk at all times. Right? You've got renters that are in it. You've got weather elements. You've got property. You've got all of these things that can happen to it. Like that money is at risk in just a different risk.
Yeah. So right.
framework,
So I'm reading the comments that are coming by over here. What I'm seeing happens, and it does. And there are people that are paying. One said $20K per year on a house in Jersey. I'm assuming that's probably on property taxes and insurance.
That's crazy.
But the point I want to say here is so the other point that came up is number going up. I think the point of why we're discussing this is that if you have excess money and if you have a crappy deal in real estate, and I've seen this over the past year, it's like, why do I own a rental property for all the headaches and for very low returns? Let's just assume the returns are 15%. I would care to think that most of us have made more than 15% on MicroStrategy and Bitcoin by a factor of probably 10x. So why are you invested in real estate? Therefore, the real estate investors are like, screw this thing. I'm just going to go invest in Mag 7 stocks or S&P 500, SPY, or hell, I'll just buy some Bitcoin and MicroStrategy if they know about it. So that's where real estate, I think, is fundamentally shifted, and screw the corporate real estate because of COVID. So many people work remote. There are all these empty buildings. So you can't go buy the corporate stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so risk everywhere. Hold on. This one person posted this. Don't your mortgages expire after around 5 years? In Canada, they do. In America, it's common to have a 30-year fixed interest rate loan.
5 years.
And so that's the same in the UK too. Like everything's like a 5-year arm, which is just totally crazy, right? Like, okay, I've got this 2% interest rate, but like 5 years from now, like, am I going to be able to afford this house? Like if this thing blows up in my face, like, am I going to be able to afford this house? It's just like a crazy dynamic. But yes, very common to have a 30-year fixed interest rate in the United States.
Yeah, and
I think second most common is 15 fixed.
Yeah, so that's true. And so in these other countries, the other thing is we also get this mortgage deduction, and the whole idea behind that was to ensure the community by buying houses and then building up the school systems around that, and then making society more stable and having a sense of community because you don't have a lot of renters. It's not a bad idea, but there are other countries that have a higher percentage of paid off properties than America, and Canada is probably one of them. I wrote a whole post on this 2 years ago. But again, going back to number going up, if I had a choice, and you guys all answer this yourselves, if you have pick a number, $100,000, you can't buy a real estate property with it. What do you put it into? You're not going to buy gold. I guess you could. If I didn't know about Bitcoin, I would buy the Mag 7 stocks. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, the Mag 7 trade is not dead.
Yeah, and you're seeing it anecdotally right here. These people sold a rental in San Jose, California, probably, and that's not far. That's where I used to live, and that's where if you can't make money on real estate in San Jose, it depends upon when you bought it and what your interest rate was. But if you gave up on that, and people there have very low unemployment and high wages, so if they're selling it, screw it.
Yeah. Weird world we're in right now. Digital property makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I didn't actually give MSTY enough credit last time we talked about it because I looked at the chart and I was like, yeah, they kind of underperformed even like spot MSTR. But I didn't factor in if you reinvested all of the dividends that they paid you.
Oh, somebody posted this. Yeah.
And it works out to like a 3x over the last year instead of, the 120% dividend. 10% a month, I think, is what they were paying out which would be 120% in a year. But if you reinvested it all, that turns into like a 3x. So it's actually not as bad as I thought it was, or better than I thought.
Somebody posted that they compared it. Oh, here we go. Thomas Young reposted this screenshot, and I'm gonna share it here. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Shout out Thomas Young, and he was a non-believer in MicroStrategy in the past, but I think now he's a believer. He's on board. Oh wait, shit. How does this work? That's the one I want to zoom. There we go. Wait, where'd it go? Shit. Why is this not working? There we go. Okay. So this was a MSTR buy and hold comparison. Oh, hey, here we go. Ben in the chat. Ben is out. He is traveling. He is on the road, and he is learning a bunch of stuff. And we look forward to hearing what he's got to say next week. Thank you, Ben. So this is just a drip play. So here we go. DRIP being dividend reinvestment program. MSTY came out in April 2024. So this is comparing if you were to buy MSTY and reinvest the dividends in a tax advantage account. So this is key, in a tax advantage account where the dividends are reinvested for free. You don't have to pay tax on them as if they're ordinary income. So it's a very key component here. The MSTY total gain would be 324% return compared to the MSTR total gain in 2024 for that same period, being 397% return. So for a fund that's offering you monthly income with directional exposure, it's a way to effectively harvest a yield on a monthly basis while still getting some of that upside potential. So, I mean, we should really do a deep dive on MSTY one of these days. Maybe it's next week with Ben. Maybe it's the following week. But I would love to go through like their actual trades and try to like put them on a graph and a chart, so we could begin to start to think about like simulating what the outcome may be. Because I think they had 124% annualized dividend yield in 2024, which is pretty freaking crazy, right? Like, and when I showed that to my uncle, he's like, I'm just going to sell one of my homes and plop it in there, and I'm going to make the value of the home that I just sold in 1 year. It was like, why wouldn't I? Then I could just go buy the house back next year. Like, why would I do that?
And that's actually during the bull market. So in the bear market, it might outperform MSTR.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it might.
50 or 70% or whatever it was that it was, short, suboptimal for holding spot, it might outperform in the bear. So,
Right. It's
I
crazy.
can't wait to see what it looks like in 4 years.
Oh, me neither, man. I put MSTY in my HSA for funsies, and I'm just gonna get massages.
I thought about
every month.
Yeah, Tastytrade lets you add as many accounts as you want, and I thought, you know what? I wonder if I just put like 100 shares of MicroStrategy in an account and an equal amount of MSTY in another one, dollar amount, and then just try to beat them. With my covered call strategy, and then after a year, see which account is bigger.
The toughest part about doing that is like your risk profile is going to be so different. Like you have to quantify like how risky are your trades relative to the MSTY trades.
Yeah, they're mechanical when they do their trades, so they're just kind of like plowing into the price no matter what.
Credit spreads and directional longs,
but they have to. They can't like, oh, we're just going to take the month off because MicroStrategy's down. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to wait for a rally and put more covered calls on. No, they have to sell it in every environment. So, an individual retail trader might be able to outperform them.
Yeah, Christoph wants you to to try to beat it. Try to beat it for the community. Do it live. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay. This is fun. We should get into the year end estimates. Let's jump into this. Thinking about how much MicroStrategy or how much Bitcoin MicroStrategy, how much MicroStrategy would Bitcoin have on its balance sheet? How much Bitcoin would MicroStrategy have on its balance sheet at the year end? So let's start with this. Okay. Here we go. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So from December 31st, 2023 to December 30th, 2024, MicroStrategy went from 189,150 Bitcoin on balance sheet to 446,400 Bitcoin on balance sheet. So in 2024, MicroStrategy added 257,250 Bitcoin. So the question is to everybody here, how much Bitcoin will MicroStrategy end 2025 with? And I think we got to put $100 on this or something, or at least make it in sats, make it a little sat bet. What is 100? There's 1,000 sats per dollar right now. So 10,000 sats would be 100,000 sats would be $100. Maybe 10,000 sats. 10,000 sat bet. Everybody throws in 10,000 sats. What do we think about that?
Works for me.
That's fine.
Sounds good.
Okay. 10,000 sats. All right. Everybody's in. So MicroStrategy ended the year 12/31/24 at 446,400. Their holdings as of 1/15/25 is 450,000. And let's see. I'm not gonna go first because I'm the host and I'm doing this. So Soleil, I'm gonna make you go first. How much Bitcoin does MicroStrategy have on their balance sheet at the end of 2025?
I say they buy 420,069 and add that to 450,000, which is 870,069.
So you think they add 420,000 and 069? Yep. Okay. So you think there's going to be 870,069. Let's go. Perfect. That's a way to kick us off. Okay, so you think they're going to add 420,069? Let's go to you, Grain. How? What about you? What do you think for 2025?
900,000 total.
Just a flat double from today.
Double, just 900,000.
Good ching.
Okay. Hold on. Let me just make sure this is working here. D1 F4. Okay. Boom. Okay,
You got to
so
add Tim.
Grain,
Got to
you
get it
think
from
they'll
Tim
buy?
Kotzman also. You got to throw him in.
We'll get Tim in there.
He's
We'll
going
get
to
the
say
whole-
like
the whole
2
crew.
million
And Tim is going to be like
at $1 million a coin.
Yes,
Bitcoin
yes,
at $1 million a
yes,
coin,
yes.
and we're gonna get 2 million. He's going to be at the top for sure. Mason, we'll get Mason. We'll get everybody in here. I just threw these names on it for seconds before this. Dan, what do you got? Dan, the man, Hillary.
780,000
780,000 total.
total.
So you think they add 333,600 from the end of the year?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Wow, that's tough. 333,000, and let's see. Hold on. Let's think through this. They've got they added 257,250 this year, and of that 257,250, 190,000 came in Q4. 190,000 came in one quarter, and that was after announcing the 42-42 plan. And if they do a 42-42 plan and then they double it, or they do a 21-21 plan for 42 billion and they double it to 84 billion, I'm on the high end here. I'm gonna have to say, man, yeah, I'm gonna have to say, shoot, I want to be near 900,000 as well. I'm gonna go 888,000, 888. Right in between 870 and 900,000. It's a tough bet. There's a bigger gap between Soleil and Dan, but I've got to go. Where's Ben?
His is in the chat.
Is in the
Yeah.
chat 656 400.
Ben 656 400. 656 400.
I mean, it's kind of a win.
Ben, you bear.
It's kind of a win-win because if they only get to 650, it's because the price of Bitcoin's really high.
Right.
That's what makes this a really
And-
hard
and-
contest.
It's tough. It's super tough because it's progressively harder as you go higher. But Bitcoin's a Veblen good. So if the price goes higher, more capital is going to be rushing to buy it in different ways and different
Totally.
forms. Right. And so let's say we go mania. Let's say Saylor taps the rest of the $21 billion of convertible debt in Q1, Q2, and all of a sudden we see an $84 billion capital plan and MicroStrategies and Mania trading at a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 MNAV. They raised $17 billion of capital in just on the ATM in what was that, like 18 billion in Q4, or they raised 18 billion in like 50 days. I don't know.
Well, and then NAV, there's just it's I think it's
I don't
so
know.
interesting because of how many different factors play in and could like considerably change this number. Price of Bitcoin, NAV multiple, debt
Yeah, like
ratio.
Bitcoin
The only
gets more
predictable thing is the debt ratio. Like the debt ratio is predictable, but that's predicated on the price of Bitcoin anyway, right? So that's a moving target. And then the ATM issuance, as we said, is like completely dependent on the NAV multiple. So like, you know, between the price of Bitcoin being an independent variable and the net asset value premium being an independent variable, it's like it's really hard to pin it down.
And Ben, if you're still listening, I know you put they're going to add 210,000. Just want to throw this out there. This is a closest to the pin bet here. So this is not Price is Right rules. If you're over, you can still win if you're closest.
Yeah, if it's Price is Right, then I'm going 656,401.
Yeah, just one more than Ben. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be it's going to be a crazy year. I mean, 2025 is nuts. I mean, FASB fair value accounting, right? Earnings per share flips positive. If they get added to the S&P 500, we're talking about 3 of the 5 largest ETFs buying MicroStrategy at any price, which could cause significant mania, right? Like all of this is stacked on top of itself. It's like strategic Bitcoin reserve, FASB fair value accounting, nation state game theory. Ben, get out of here. Let me through. Oh my god.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to wrap up and drop off, but maybe this is controversial. Maybe it's not. I already think it's game over, and I'll tell you. And I'll tell you, folks. I'll tell you why. If you look at the top 3 ETFs that hold Bitcoin, they're in the United States, right? And that's 1 million Bitcoins right there, 950,000. Then you add in the numbers that you see here. And let's just assume that the top 3, let's say they both go up by 50% from here. What's going to happen is you're going to be at more than 2 million Bitcoins are going to be held by U.S. and U.S.-based, either U.S. individual investors in MicroStrategy and in the spot Bitcoin ETFs and so forth. So in my view, the game theory is already over. The U.S. has already won because of this.
Oh, we got Josh.
And also when you think about this, given that U.S.-based companies can put Bitcoin in the balance sheet, given the FASB ruling and how that shifted in the U.S., and we don't know how that really affects any companies that are outside the U.S., I think it's already done. And I wanted to be on record here, me saying this, that I think Michael Saylor was right on January 10th of 2024, that it sparked a gold rush that's going to go. And everybody that's outside this country, if you're a little bit upset what I said, go talk to your politicians. Our politicians, we had a regime change. I picked that word specifically. And it fundamentally shifted. And so if our government doesn't do it in the U.S., we've got MicroStrategy, U.S.-based company, and then the 3 largest spot Bitcoin ETFs are in the U.S. and plus all the other ones. So from that perspective, that's where we are. And so for everybody outside the U.S., you have to think like your own sovereign individual and take care of yourself first. And if you're on this call, you already know about MSTR, and you already know about if you can't buy a spot Bitcoin ETF or Bitcoin for whatever reason, that's why you're on the call. So with that said, if these numbers are right, I hope they are, the number goes up. And that's all I have for the takeaway.
Numbers going up.
Take care. Everybody
Numbers
take
going
care.
up.
Have a great night.
All right,
Hey,
thanks,
Grain.
Grain.
You
Catch you
too.
later,
Thanks,
man.
man.
Enjoy the Porsche.
Yeah, well.
See ya. Oh man.
Yeah, like
Okay.
Bitcoin's going to get harder to buy, but like if Bitcoin doubles, what do you think is going to happen to MicroStrategy's price? So their ATMs are still going to be able to buy.
1x nav.
Yeah,
What?
their,
Yeah.
their
Just,
ATMs are still going to be able to buy just as much Bitcoin as it ever has. So I'm not even worried about them slowing down at all.
let's go here. This will be fun. Let's play with this a little bit. Let's say actually, I'll duplicate this. Move copy, create a copy, MSTR summary. Okay, so we can play with this one. All right, so let's just say, I don't know, Neithu, what was your estimate? 850,000 or something?
Yeah. Oh no, 870,000 and 69.
870,000 and 69. 870,069. Okay. Let's get crazy with this because this will be fun. And let's say, okay, so 870,069. Let's say in order to double, they need to, the share float needs to increase by, I don't know, 50%, 60%. Let's do equals this times 1.6. We're speculating here. So 389 million shares. Share flow. All right. So if the amount of Bitcoin that they hold on balance sheet has to double, we're saying that the shares needs to go up by 60%. That could be wrong. All right. Awesome. Cool. Our little our chat monitor is gone. So we thank you, Justin. And now I've got to manage the chat myself. Here we go. Okay, we're going back into it. 870,069 Bitcoin. Let's say the debt increases to what? 17.5 million or 17.5 billion. And the price of Bitcoin goes to, what do you say, Soleil? Like 250,000?
Yeah.
I like that.
250,000. So the amount of assets they would have on their balance sheet would be 217 billion. The liabilities would be 17 billion. So their net assets would be 200 billion.
I like that.
Okay. So
I like that a lot.
So, and then, yeah, I like that a lot. I like this.
This is fun math.
So, okay. So if it's at 250,000, and let's say the NAV goes to
4x fully diluted.
Just
4x fully diluted.
Just 4x fully diluted. I mean, we're like, that's kind of what this is showing, right?
Plus 25%, you're at
$60
$1 trillion, right?
Plus 25%, you're at it. Where are you?
I mean, like, what are total assets?
Total assets. Yeah, right. Yeah, I see what you're going. 225 times 4.
Oh, that's
200. Yeah, 250 times 4.
You're pretty close to $1 trillion there.
So a 4x MNAV would be about $1 trillion in a $2,000 Bitcoin or $2,000 MSTR price. Does that sound reasonable?
Does that include increase in outstanding share count?
Yeah, that's what I did. I increased the outstanding share count by 60%.
And how many Bitcoins? I have my model up here too. How many Bitcoins is that? You said? Sorry.
870, almost double, nearly double. 870,000 Bitcoin, nearly double.
870,000 Bitcoin.
Tim just texted me. Hold on, I got to add Tim into my huge.
Yeah, I have
here.
the same thing, Jeff. I just have more. I have more converts going out to get there, and so I have like a corresponding corresponding share count increase based on a 50% multiple at the different prices. So I'm at the same thing. I'm at a 4x MNAV, that's not fully diluted though. So it's probably like a 4.5 fully diluted, 220 Bitcoin price, 830,000 Bitcoins, and the $2,100 share price, 730 billion market cap. So ballpark, same things. Just
730 billion market cap. Yeah, I think that's about right. I think that's pretty similar. That's similar to the math that I've outlined here. But again, this like doesn't incorporate Mania.
I like the 4x MNAV because we've been there.
We've been there, but it's oscillated and gone larger. Like every MNAV peak has gone larger. It's gone higher.
Yeah, and I really hope they come out with a part of, like, I know we talk a lot about the next stage in the strategy and that Bitcoin acquisition isn't necessarily the end game. If they start hinting at that, I think that premium on the premium for like a growth company will start to kick in a little bit more.
Hinting at what?
The potential sort of the next phase of the business model.
Collateral? Yeah. Phase 2.
Even if they just hint at it, right? People will be like, oh, this is actually something, like there is growth here. And right now they just can't see that because they think BTC per share yield is a decreasing metric. I think that's what the market's thinking, and that's why they're not willing to slap a crazy multiple on this.
Okay. Yeah, agreed. Tim just messaged me 1 million Bitcoin. Mason messaged me 730,000 Bitcoin.
Normally I would say Tim is like outrageously bullish, but I do think like 1 million Bitcoin is in the cards.
Is it?
I think it is. Yeah.
I think you're right.
It's
because
doable.
think about where we're at now, right? Like a year ago, would you have expected, like we were modeling out 450,000 Bitcoin in 5 years.
We were laughing, right? It's like we're like, no way.
Granted, they front loaded a lot of this, right? But there's going to be a convertible debt front load and a preferred shares front load Q1 25 or Q2 25. So like we've seen one phase of the front load. I don't think the front load's even close to being over.
Right. And the capital plan, I mean, this thing has just begun. Like we've seen just one piece of this. Like this can get like far more complicated and larger.
Definitely.
Right? We're talking private placement unrated bonds. If these become rated at all, or if they're offering other products like preferred shares with the dividend, I mean, this could get out
crazy. Of hand.
Josh, I am the only one bullish enough. we should ask Gladiator. Gladiator, if you are on this, I know you're busy playing golf and convincing your golf partners that they should buy MicroStrategy, which is insane. But if you're on this call, please post your guesstimates on where MicroStrategy.
Yeah, plug this into your model.
I thought it was 33. I thought it was 30,000 this year. I saw a video of Gladiator
30,000
playing golf, and he said 30,000.
Yeah, interesting.
The 20,000.
How many?
You
know how many shares they actually sold at the ATM in Q4 to get that done? To get all those.
Oh yeah, I think I have that number too.
How did I know?
God, I should clean.
You can pull numbers out like
it's huge.
Hermione's purse. You just got everything in there.
I think it's in here. Hold on. Oh, maybe it's not. No, I should pull that in here though. I'll put it in here. I'll do that later. Shares. We'll find that out though.
We should let Gladiator let us stay at the Harvard Club in New York next week or next.
Yeah. He's over here. Oh yeah, I'm making this prediction from my parents' basement in Newport Beach. I'm making this prediction on the beach. It's funny. Gladiator estimates MicroStrategy will buy 40 million Bitcoin in 2025. I love it. Oh man, it's so funny.
I guess I'm not bullish enough.
Yeah, I'm not bullish enough. What was I was gonna show something. I think it was this. Yeah. Okay. This is pretty cool. Maybe I'll make it bigger. Okay. So what year is this? So I've got years on the horizon here, and this is the Bitcoin supply curve, and this is why Sailor says that we're in a gold rush, right? So we are, what year is this? 2025. We're here. Right there. I'll just delete this. We are like right here on the Bitcoin supply curve. So here's why this is crazy, right? Like you look at 2032 is when there will only be 1% of Bitcoin remaining to be mined for the next 100 years, right? Like you see how steep this curve is, right? Like there's so much Bitcoin still being left to mine and acquire. So the steepness of that curve drops drastically in the next like 8 years. So after 2032, the remaining Bitcoin left to be mined is 1% of the supply for forever. Like for the rest of humanity is the remaining 1% of the supply remain to be mined. So this is why we're in the gold rush, is because we're in this like really steep part of the curve of the supply being distributed out to, I guess, humanity, really. So we're in this huge accumulation phase. And once we get to this period, 2032, you're going to have a significant increase in the number of people in humanity that quit what they're doing to go work on Bitcoin full time. And I don't think anybody really understands that. Like Bitcoin demands everybody's energy, and people will start working on this stuff because that is where it's most valuable. So it's I'm very bullish on the horizon here. Just given that these things are this is the way that, you know, Bitcoin is structured and designed, which is really cool. So Dan, getting your point of like phase two here is phase two is being able to use Bitcoin as collateral, right? Posting Bitcoin as collateral, putting it at risk for a return. And in the past, putting Bitcoin at risk has been a naughty word, a bad term, like really risky. Like the yielding opportunities were significantly riskier than maybe they said they were, than the yield that was returned to them. But when you have large systemically large banking institutions that are involved in Bitcoin, you start to develop and create and identify opportunities to put that collateral at risk for very low risk potential. So I'm very bullish on that future of Bitcoin as collateral. Everybody's using homes as collateral right now. Everybody's using real estate as collateral. Everybody's using stock portfolios as collateral. And the development of Bitcoin collateral ecosystems will expand. What's Ben in here saying? What's he doing? Was Ben just sitting in the background watching and just chiming in from the chat? Where is it? What is he doing? MSTR bonds are limited. He's just ripping up.
He's driving
the chat.
with his knee and he's like text typing.
Into the chat. He's in traffic, you know, in the middle of
There can be a ton of demand.
Uh,
Doesn't mean MSTR will overleverage themselves. That's how you get into trouble. And these are very based points.
Based.
Very based.
Please explain why a NAV multiplier is greater than 2.
Okay, I'll break it down really quickly.
Yeah, because it can.
Because
go ahead, Dan.
Because it's a forward.
That's Josh's favorite response. Is like because it can.
Because no one sets it,
Go ahead.
and then 2, because in a year it's going to be justified. So,
well, I mean, let's go back to my thing here.
it was justified last year, but it was at like a 1x MNAV.
Does Apple deserve a 53 MNAV? Does Nvidia deserve a 57 MNAV? Does Google deserve a 7 MNAV? Does Amazon deserve a 9 MNAV? Berkshire's at 1.6 MNAV because it's a diversified ETF, basically.
Even if, I don't mean to interrupt, but even if you think it's future expectations of Bitcoin holdings, then it's justified. Like if you, yeah. And that's like a bear case.
Here's Josh, because it can. It's been one of my favorite responses. I think he said this back in February when we first started chatting. It's like, why can't it trade at a multiple? Because it can.
Yeah, everything that is possible, giving a long enough time frame, is inevitable. So
It's
yeah,
a great point.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to trade the MNAV, but I'm going to hold it until it's at 100 MNAV. I'm going to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy to think about. And I don't remember who asked that question, but if you really start to zoom out and you think about like what is an equity, right? I mean, I think it's helpful to ask your question: what is an equity? What is any equity? What's the point of holding any equity? What do you get from holding an equity? Especially if all of these equities don't have dividends, what do you get? Like what is the purpose of it? What's the value of it? And who's holding it and why are they holding it? And how long are they holding it? And do they care? Or like what's the architecture of the US equity market? What's the design of how the buyers work? Who cares?
Depot MNAV.
Yeah. What is the Home Depot MNAV? And this is old, and unfortunately, I can't automate it. But I think Home Depot's fallen since then. But Home Depot was at 88 last time I did this.
I mean, they're gonna sell a lot of fence posts. Like
after I did this analysis, I almost bought puts on Home Depot, and then I was like, no, what am I doing? I just need it. Like that's just a waste. That's a waste of cash. That's a waste of cash. Anyway. It's an interesting framework when you start to think about like who's buying these companies and why they're buying them and what you get for holding it. Like what's the purpose of holding it? I mean, we live in a meme world now.
Yeah, it's all
right?
Fugazi, literally everything.
Everything. Here we go.
Even Mag 7 complete Fugazi is a call option on the assets of the company. The more volatile the assets, the higher the potential equity value. It's really interesting.
It's all vol.
That's not what they teach you at business school, I've heard.
It's all vol, which also is a crazy statistic when you look at the I think I said this in one of the last True Norths. It's like it's the top 10 largest public traded equity by volume for the last 50 trading days in a row. Like there's something there, right? There's a reason it's the top 5 or top 10 largest publicly traded equity for the last 50 days in a row. Now, why is it? Like, what is it about it that makes it viable to be a top 10 publicly traded equity? It's crazy. Maybe it makes sense to pull up the MNAV tracker again, just to look at the history, because this is interesting. I did do a forensic analysis of the MNAV going back in time, because this is something that a lot of people have asked as well. If you go all time, Dan, I think I can hear you slapping on the keyboard here. He's slapping. If you go back in time, you can look at some of these historical events and kind of what happened during these historical events. I think I did this on one of the Quant Bros videos, and some of these elevated periods over here on the left-hand side of the curve, looking back all time, where MicroStrategy had a NAV premium of 4.36, higher than anything it's trading at now. At this point in time, MicroStrategy was included in the S&P 600. And so the S&P 600 being basically the small version of the S&P 500 for companies that are between $500 billion market cap and a $2 billion market cap with positive earnings. MicroStrategy was included even after they had adopted their Bitcoin treasury strategy. And so it became very clear very quickly that MicroStrategy would be excluded from the S&P 600 once the intangible asset value on the balance sheet made their earnings go negative. It became very clear that they were going to get dropped out of the S&P 600, which was one of the largest holders of MicroStrategy at that point in time when they first adopted the Bitcoin treasury strategy. So I think I don't want to say safe to assume, but the more index ETFs that they included in, the more passive buyers that you have that are coming into the stock and never selling, right? Like the way passive index funds work is they're buying in perpetuity forever, and they are not sellers of equity. Just kind of depends on the global macro environment and whether equities make sense to buy. But if MicroStrategy continues to climb and gets into the S&P 500, it's going to climb the publicly traded leaderboard in perpetuity because it just has this underlying nuclear core of Bitcoin. So I think it was episode 7 on Quant Bros, where I did the forensic analysis. It's out there. I did it solo. It's kind of like this layer cake that you can see kind of grow over time. Pretty interesting. So anyway, I think that's all I got. Any other topics you guys want to cover?
No, I'm pretty tired. I'm good.
No, I'm pretty tired. Yeah, let it rip. I'm almost out of whiskey. So
At least Dan's on the East Coast
think
with
that's all we
me.
got.
Why are you tired, Jeff?
I'm tired because I just get up early and got a lot of shit going on. Big week. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I'll probably be up another 3 or 4 hours after this, but
Exactly.
You can still be
but
tired.
you know, I kinda, you know, what up tired, a lot of things.
Thanks,
going on.
Josh.
So many
Thanks
things.
for listening.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the time. We will be back on next week, next Wednesday, and look forward to keeping this going. We'll have a new political regime next week, and yeah, we'll see how things go.